Welcome back. It's good to see you again. Before we really get into the meat and bones of these explanations, I have to give a definition of altruism. This term will be popping up again from time to time, and it's quite crucial because it's essentially the crux of our question. Altruism is acting selflessly or doing things that benefit another person at your own expense. So, when I talk about acting altruistically towards family, I essentially mean that you are going above and beyond for your family member and doing things for them that may cause no benefit for you or maybe even put you in a worse off position. Now, for the first explanation of altruistic behavior to family: genetics. See, in theory, it's quite simple. We want to understand why humans care about family, right? Well, all we have to do is look around at our neighbors. Monkeys, bees, deer, lions. All of them have some sort of family unit, and all of them display altruistic behavior towards their family members. So, clearly, it must have something to do with our genetic makeup as an animal. Something scientific and some sort of survival benefit that comes out of that. Enter Hamilton. W.D Hamilton was a British evolutionary biologist, and he came up with a genetic explanation for why we humans, and even animals, act altruistically. In his eyes, it's simple. We act altruistically simply because we want to protect our genes. Family members all pull from a commonly shared gene pool, and thus, as many evolutionary scientists have postulated before, animals do care a great deal about the ability to procreate and pass those genes on, known as kin selection. The strength of one's ability to pass on their genes to the next generation is known as inclusive fitness. Thus, by protecting individuals who carry the same genes that you do, you are improving the inclusive fitness of your gene pool. All of this is simple enough, but Hamilton does what any great theorist should do. He adds math into the mix. Great. Luckily, the math is fairly straightforward. We have three variables: R, which is genetic relatedness, B, which is the benefit to the recipient's reproductive success, and C, which is the cost of the donor's success. If R times B is greater than C, in other words, if genetic relatedness and the success of reproduction is higher than the cost of acting altruistically, it is likely that the person or animal will act that way. So let's put some numbers in to help you visualize it. Let's say that there's a scenario where your brother is starving and you have some food. You won't starve to death if you don't have the full meal, but your brother would starve to death if you don't give him some of yours. Here, your brother is genetically related to you by 0.5 or 50%, let's say. The benefit of you giving him food is 1, because by him eating some food, he won't die by having an empty stomach. The cost to you is 0.25, because you're losing half of your food, but you're still going to be alive and well regardless. Thus, R times B, or 0.5 times 1, equals 0.5. The cost, the C, is 0.25. 0.5 is greater than 0.25, so you are likely to help your brother because the benefit outweighs the cost. Now, imagine if that was your cousin instead. Genetically, you share 12.5% of genes, or 0.125. 0.125 times 1 is less than 0.25, so in that scenario, you may be more hesitant to share your food. But hearing that, do you agree? This, of course, is a theory. It has its strengths and it has its weaknesses. So let's go through some of these now. On the positive side of things, it can first be credited for something as simple as it being an explanation for altruism. The theory does put forward a hypothesis for why someone may act altruistically for their family, and do less for others. Using genetic relatedness as a basis for it does seem somewhat reasonable too. Secondly, it can also be credited for being somewhat quantitative in its explanation. By using a formula, it allows for a scenario to be tried and tested and can be applied to various situations to predict the behavior of an individual. Finally, Hamilton's theory can do more than just predict the behavior of a human. It can be applied to other animals too. And while this point doesn't directly correlate with our question of why people act altruistically to family, it is almost like an added bonus. Now, I'm sure when it comes to the negative side of things, there's already some bells going off in your head. I mean, I can't think of the last time I did something good for a family member and thought, yeah, I've just saved my bloodline. Hamilton's theory can be criticized then for being oversimplified. By reducing altruistic behavior to genetics, it ignores all the other nuanced explanations for acting altruistically. And to some, the genetic side of things may even be the least weighted factor in altruistic behavior. This is especially true when you look to real-life examples and realize that there are a lot of anomalies that fall outside of this example. For example, what about if a child was raised by their aunt instead of their real parent? Would they still act more altruistically to their real parent just because they share the same genetics? What about if your parent is senile and can no longer produce offspring? Are you just going to completely forget about them purely because they can't continue your bloodline? And what about adoption? They have no genetic relatedness, and yet they act as a family unit, altruism and all the rest. Therefore, the biggest and most important criticism is that in real life, there are thousands, if not millions of examples that Hamilton's theory cannot explain. It falls short as an explanation because it is extremely reductionist. It reduces altruistic behavior to a singular factor, which just isn't true in many scenarios. Now, that is a lot of information to digest, so I'm going to do a quick recap of what we've gone through so far. So, first of all, altruism is acting selflessly or doing things that benefit another at your own expense. Hamilton argues that we act altruistically as a means of increasing our inclusive fitness, ensuring that our bloodline continues and spreads. This can be measured by the formula R times B is greater or less than C, whereby individuals or animals will act altruistically if R times B is greater than C. This explanation is good because it provides a testable hypothesis through the use of a formula, and it is also good because it is simple and can be applied to more than just humans. However, it is too simplified. There is a lot of nuance to real-life family relationships, factors which won't be included in the simple formula. Furthermore, there are many cases that Hamilton's theory fails to explain, like adoption or even cases where found family has more importance than blood ties. Well, we got through it in the end, and hopefully you've learnt a little bit about the genetic explanation for altruism. Have a think. Do you see any merit in this explanation? Can you think of any more examples that fall outside of this explanation? Tune in next time where we will explore and evaluate the existence of special duties as an explanation for altruism.